And we shall start a new topic today called the ROV contract. We completed the introduction to business law. So today we are proceeding to the ROV contract. Let us first define a contract. Then after, we shall look at the types of contract. From there, we can proceed to essential elements of a valid contract. So, by definition, a contract is a legally binding agreement or relationship that exists between the two or more parties to do or abstain from performing certain acts. And the parties can either be natural persons or artificial persons. An artificial person can be like a company. Me and you can be like natural persons. So a contract can be entered into either by natural persons or artificial persons. It is a bargain, a tit for a tat, a deal from which all parties expect to benefit. And the parties to the agreement must have a final agreement, that is, their minds must meet. The contract is entered into by parties who have consensus of the mind, which in Latin we call consensus ad idem. When the parties' minds divert, then there is no contract. And the party of the contract is said to be in breach or violation if he or she has failed to fulfill the terms of the contract. Again, I've said that the contract is a legally binding agreement or relationship that exists between the two or more parties to do or abstain from performing certain acts. And I've also said that these parties can either be natural persons or artificial persons, e.g. a company. Therefore, let us proceed to the different types of contracts. Different types of contracts. The first type of a contract is called express contracts. Express contracts or express contract. This is a contract in which the parties specifically agree about the nature and the terms of their relationship orally or in writing. So if they agree about the terms and the nature, either by the word of mouth or in writing, then that contract is called express contract. The second type of contract is called implied contract. Here the terms of the contract are ascertained from the conduct of the parties and the surrounding circumstances. The conduct of the parties, the way the parties conduct themselves, and even the surrounding circumstance is enough to tell that a contract has been entered into by the two or more parties. Then we have another type of contract called specialty contract. Specialty contract or contracts are also called contracts under seal. Another name for specialty contracts. Contracts under seal. And these contracts undergo some formalities. That is, they are written, signed, and delivered. And the best example is a deed. For instance, a partnership deed, which spells out the rights and duties of a partner in a partnership firm. Then another type of a contract is called a valid contract. And a valid contract is an agreement that is enforceable by law, and it is an agreement with all the essential elements of a valid contract. For instance, offer, consideration, acceptance, free consent, contractual obligation, intention to create legal relationship, etc., as we shall see. That is a valid, enforceable by law, but a valid contract has all the essentials or characteristics of a valid contract. Then we have simple contracts. Simple contracts are also called parallel contracts. And simple contracts are contracts which don't need to be in any form. They can either be oral, written, partly oral, partly written, or implied by conduct. So a simple contract does not need to be in any form. Either form, it is a contract. Either if it is oral, if it is written, partly oral, partly written, or implied, we call it simple contract. Then we have void contracts. A void contract is a contract that is not binding or enforceable by law. It comes from the word null and void. Void, something which cannot be enforced. So a void contract is a type of contract that is not enforceable by law. And such contracts have no real effect at all. For example, where both parties were mistaken, where something that has been contracted upon is prohibited by law or offered without consideration, and with a void contract, it is not binding on any of the parties. Therefore, a contract which is void is not enforceable. In fact, a void contract, by law, it is not a contract at all. Then we have voidable contract. A void contract is different from a voidable contract. A voidable contract is a type of contract enforceable by the law at the option of one party. That means it can be enforced by one party, but the terms of the contract are not binding on the other party. For example, a contract entered into with a minor, where a minor can sue the major, but the major cannot sue the minor because the minor lacks the age of consent, which is 18 years. That is a voidable contract. It means it can be enforced at the option of the minor who can sue, but the major cannot sue. Usually the contract is said to be voidable when the consent of one of the parties is obtained by vitiating factors. And vitiating factors, we mean factors which change a valid contract and it becomes void. And vitiating factors include, among others, mistake, misrepresentation, fraud, duress. Another type of contract is called bilateral contract. Bilateral and unilateral, you can define bilateral contract from its name. Bilateral means two, then unilateral means one. So when we talk of bilateral contract, this is a contract in which both parties are bound to the contractual terms. Both parties bilateral. But unilateral, this is a type of a contract where the terms of the contract apply only to one party. For instance, where there is where someone promises to reward another person if he can find his lost property, that is a bilateral contract because it is binding on the promiser, not the promisee. Meaning, if I find your lost property, then you are obliged to reward me, not the promisee who has found your lost property. That is what we call unilateral contract. Then we have illegal contracts. Illegal contracts. Illegal contracts are contracts prohibited by law. Contracts prohibited by law, or contracts which contravene or contradict the position of the law of the country and public policy.